My name is Jack Seidler, and you are watching that Hella Dank podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I hope you enjoy. Is that autoflower you brought in that little piece?
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah, dude.
I'll offer you some, but
No, I'm straight right now. Thank you, though.
it's not a thing.
Yeah, and if you want to adjust your headset volume, it's this knob here.
Just the end there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to Kelly before I came here, and I was telling him, I was like, I've never taken a break from weed or alcohol in my whole life. Ever since I started. Literally never stopped. Like, I'd go through different levels of consumption, but I definitely have never just, like, stopped and not smoked weed for a whole month or drank alcohol for a whole month ever in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I go through periods where, like, I'll quit smoking for either a month or a couple months, or I think the longest I went was, like, 6 or 7 months. And then, I'll still be drinking or whatever throughout that. I've never been able to, like, drop that. I never tried dropping both of them at the same time. But,
It's not wise.
yeah, January, I did the dry January thing. I didn't drink at all, but I still smoked a little bit. Oh, yeah, you can just pull it towards you.
Can I lower this a little bit?
Yeah, just pull it. Just grab the elbow and pull it down. They're just a little stiff.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go.
There you go. But yeah, I was asking Kelly, I'm like, so you're gonna do sober October with me? Like, no drinking, no smoking. He's like, no.
Yeah.
Which I understand, It's just I haven't been smoking for the past couple weeks, and so I'm like, oh, I'll see if I can do it. Just no drinking or nothing for a month. It's probably gonna suck. I'll probably not get very much sleep for the first few days, but because that was always my excuse. Oh, I got to smoke to help me go to bed.
I mean, what is your goal in taking a sober month?
Just to do it and just to say I did it, and I don't know, just kind of something to do.
Kind of a weird reason.
Yeah,
I mean, I would understand if you said, like, I'm practicing self-control or, something
there is
more intentional, but just for something to do, that's kind of...
Well, I think there is
That's
some
why
of that,
maybe
too.
I haven't ever stopped. It's because I'm, like, not interested in not having a good time.
Yeah, I think the self-control thing, like, I have slipped with drinking a bit too much here and there, and so I think that's kind of part of it, too, is just being able to be, like, chill the fuck out and not get too deep. And
You're saying you appreciate it more because you can balance it. That makes sense.
That's kind of...
Because I could see taking a break and coming back realizing my tolerance is down and that maybe I don't abuse it as much because I'm not so high tolerance that I just smoke joints and freaking dabs all day.
All day, yeah.
I mean, I don't do that anyways. Whenever I'm working, I don't really smoke weed at all.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a really terrible day or something, maybe I will. Or if I'm traveling, I guess it depends on the things I'm doing.
Yeah.
If I'm having meetings, sending emails, doing anything that requires me to really form my words right, I choose to not smoke weed. Because if I'm traveling though, fuck, dude, I eat edibles. I get drunk. I'm taking tequila shots in the airport. I get fucked up when I'm traveling. But whenever I'm at the job and I'm doing the job, then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, sober. Got no interest in being on that level because it's hard. If you're trying to send emails that make sense to people, you can't really be stoned out of your mind.
No,
at least
it
I can't.
Sucks. This is actually funny. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, back in school, I would have to do writing classes, and we would have to write like sourced essays about certain topics, and you gotta like, pick a topic. My thing was about GMOs, and I had to write like a 13-page essay on the consequences of GMOs, pesticides, yada yada. This is like my early days of college, and I always wrote those things stoned, man. And I went back on my Google Docs one day and was reading it. I'm like, what was I saying?
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember it got graded. I'm like, man, that dude gave me a D. Like, what the hell?
He gave you a D because he can tell. He's
I
like,
thought I
this
wrote
freaking stoner.
Yeah, I was like, I thought I wrote the Constitution. I thought it was that good, and then I go back and read it, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like another language. Like, I structured it right in MLA format, whatever the hell they call it, but
Mm.
yeah, it just didn't. Like, some of it made sense, but I can totally tell. Like, looking back on it now, it's just like, oh my god, I was horrible at that.
I mean,
Barely passed that class, but I'll never do that again.
yeah, we're all horrible at things until we regularly do it and do it with people that are expecting a certain level of quality. So like,
Yeah,
you're not going to be a professional unless you work with professionals, because like in a professional environment they expect a certain level of not, I don't want to say compliance, but like quality.
yeah.
And with that, I mean, if you send an email that doesn't make any sense, it's the worst thing you can get is a response from whoever you're sending it to going, what? Or just confused, or they start, I would say, excluding you from different things because you can't spell basic things right, or like form sentences. So I mean,
Yeah.
I wasn't very illiterate when it came to like my writing, like reading and writing, as until I was running a business was not nearly as crucial.
Yeah.
And then now as a business owner, you're communicating with your clients, you're communicating with employees, whatever. You have to set the standard by having an ability to like communicate your point across, but also being tactful.
Yeah.
And like being tactful is a value that you don't really learn in school. It's something that I learned from working in sales, working with Kelly and like at the hydro shop. Was just, it taught me that my job is that much easier if I can get people to be on my side.
Yeah, Kelly kind of taught me that too when I first started working at the shop. Like, he had to like teach me how to properly structure an email, like, good day, whatever,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
the
you
intro
space
and
down, and then you get to the point. You don't write a bunch of stupid filler, and then at the end you write thank you or regards, whatever the hell. And like in school, they kind of teach us that a little bit. But the way he broke it down was much simpler, and it applies to this day when I send emails and I get responses that are in a similar construct. That's really funny.
I always call it the Caudel.
The Caudel structure,
Yeah,
or
so
either.
it's like coddling, but I've always called it the Caudel because it's like Kelly always had this tact that made people want to give him, first of all, their time, but their money.
Yeah,
They're always,
he was
even
good
if
at that.
Kelly, he just made people feel good. He always had a really good interaction with customers, which made them want to come back and choose to shop there over other places. Which it also sucked as a salesman being around him, because it was like nobody ever wanted to talk to you. It was like, oh well,
Yeah.
all the old ladies want to talk to Kelly, and then all the old men want to talk to Kelly, and then pretty much just everybody wants to talk to Kelly by the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I can help you, and Kelly actually doesn't want to help all of you. Like, if you really want to know, I mean, you just have to like cut him into wanting to work with you by being that as good as he was. And I had that eventually. I got, over time, way more comfortable with, my own experience growing and my clients. And, I started like getting that confidence just by working, I guess, in that environment.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was really awesome. It like really helped build me with some of the strengths that make me successful in business to this day. It's like the things that I took for granted that I was learning, in my early 20s at the hydro shop.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a strong level of charisma I'd never seen before. And if anyone's watching this, we're referring to the hydro shop we were talking about in the previous episode.
Corvallis
Corvallis Hydro, the place. And I learned a lot myself. Like, you had much more time on your belt working with him, but I kind of felt that same thing where it's like I worked weekends, but there's times I'd be in during the week to cover for like Rohal or some shit. It only happened a couple times, but it was always that case of the guy coming in who's like, been growing for a while, and he'll be like, oh, where's Kelly? And I'll be like, he's gone, or he's not available on the weekends. Then you get pissed about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
they almost hang up on you. They're like, you're useless.
Yeah, so many people. Yeah, especially when they'd call the shop. Is Kelly available? I'm like, nope, he's not available. Like, I'll just call back Monday or whatever. I'm like, dog, I could help you. Like, Kelly sets the same standard most of the time for, for me to apply to other customers. I don't know. But yeah, I learned a lot from. That was my first experience doing legit sales like that. And just so much in a short period of time. It's just like, from the emails to the way you talk to someone to giving people an X amount of time. like to discuss something if they're asking you questions. He's like, you give them 8 minutes. If they take 8 minutes too long or whatever, if they're asking questions, you know, you got to tell them you're busy or whatever the hell. And yeah, that's and yeah, now in your case, you know, you've really taken off with that, with the, you know, jumping forward from that to like what happened with Worthy Hands and how structuring that business, just me observing you was, you know, yeah, you can just go from there. It was quite the learning curve, I guess, maybe, or
Well,
not
I mean,
really like
I
a
ran a few
transition.
businesses into the ground over years. It was fun and we made money, but they didn't stand the test of time. You know, they're
Yeah.
not $1 million businesses to this day, which is unfortunate. But I think they have the potential, and what we learned doing that has given me the mindset of like what I actually want over having $1 million business,
Yeah.
or like what I wanted then was different. So now I'm just putting my attention into areas that actually make me happier than what I was pursuing in those businesses was to make a ton of money in my business to sell it for something.
Yeah.
And I was kind of trying to pave that pathway myself and put too much risk on like where I was putting my investment, putting it all into my own and not having like a diverse portfolio when it comes to what I'm putting my time and money into. I was just all balls to the wall, weed, you know, in the weed industry, and then it was screw weed, we're going to hemp, and we did all hemp, and just kind of pivoting like that was exhausting.
Yeah.
And it was not a practice that, you know, kept me wanting to start another business and like doing it the same way that we were. So, you know, since then I've run a business for the last 3 years with no employees myself.
Yeah, which
I
that's
make
impressive.
Pretty decent money. It's a pain in the ass, but like I have no overhead now.
Yeah.
I have managed my time really wisely, so now I can run that business whenever I feel like it or whenever it is worth it for me to, while also jumping into other opportunities with all this extra time I've created for myself.
Yeah.
And so now I have 3 different, you know, potential avenues for revenue coming all at once.
Yeah.
And back then it was like, you know, all my attention was on this one project. So if this project doesn't work out, I'm left with nothing. Here it is, you know, 3 years later, I took what I knew then. I was like, okay, overhead is terrifying.
Yeah.
Having, you know, too many staff and partners gets really complicated, and it starts like taking away from what I'm here to do, which I'm here to utilize my knowledge to make money, but I also don't want to be bound to it either. I don't want to be stuck in this business that I'm so indebted to that I can't say, fuck it, I'm going to go do something else tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a really that's just hearing you say that, dude. That's really inspiring to. So, let's dive back a bit. So let's just talk about what it is you actually do now. Like we talked about Worthy Hands. I mean, Kelly and I talked about Worthy Hands a little bit in the previous episode, and that was, you know, the trimming and some extraction. But what you do now is like full on extraction. So, what it like, yeah, exactly. Where are you at now with that?
Well, for the last 3 years, I've been making solventless hash for the rec market in Oregon under a couple different brands. I mostly do white labeling for other companies, the main one being Cascade Valley Cannabis. Made all their product for the last 3 years, like I said. Actually won the second place High Times Cup People's Choice Award, second place this last year, which is pretty cool.
That is badass. I was going to ask about that, but yeah, that's dope.
That's a pretty awesome achievement.
That's a great achievement, yeah.
But those guys still haven't given me my trophy. I'm pretty pissed. I promised a nice, tall silver trophy and haven't seen shit, so that's kind of disappointing. But nonetheless, I have a printout that says that I'm second place, which that doesn't carry very much weight.
You think they sent it to the wrong address or some shit? Like,
no, I've heard High Times is just flaky and doesn't give you your trophies for like a year plus. If ever.
Well, hopefully you get it. That's some bullshit.
I
That's a cool looking trophy. I've seen it. It's the one with like the weed leaves coming around the goblet, right? Yeah.
I mean, it would be pretty dope. I mean, I paid extra for this one too, so I'm really gonna be pissed if they don't get it for me. But
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah.
So, anyways, to continue, I'm currently processing in Oregon, but I'm actually working on a project with Happy Cabbage to expand operations to the East Coast. We are developing a lab in New York right now, which is near completion, and will be operational and have products for sale within a month or so.
And so that'll be under the Happy Cabbage name?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. What part of New York is that again?
It's upstate New York is where we're at.
Okay.
By Rochester.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But we'll sell our products everywhere, like mostly in the city.
Yeah. Yeah, the city, I mean, it's one of the biggest cities right there, dude. And we talked about. I know a bunch of shops are popping up even north of Rochester that would probably be interested in that. That's that's a huge step to going from where you were 3 years ago to now. Like that's insane, man. Every time you talk to me about where you're going with it, it's just like, oh, I'm starting a spot here, got a spot here, and just did you anticipate that happening when you first got into this? Like, or
No, I mean it's kind of weird that one of the things that has gained so much skill in my part is the fact that I've had so many labs that I've had to set up and take down over the years. I mean, I can't even. It's got to be 7 or more or some crap like that. I hate that number is so high that I've built so many cold rooms and I've developed so many processes and I just have. I'm like overqualified for building these stupid buildings because of my own like failures over the years. And
Yeah.
so with that, it's okay, I have 7 years of experience building labs and various environments and for various markets because it's always changed. It started with the hemp operation is really, I mean, well, no, actually, in medical days, I was doing keefing and stuff. I was doing dry ice keefing.
Yeah.
I did some crazy shit with BHO. Like, we all tried stupid shit that
Oh,
we shouldn't have done back then. But then it, eventually matured into a hemp facility that had an ethanol extraction, and we had solventless extraction, and we, like, turned it into a whole process.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I remember we built a cold room and a washroom for hemp, and then we realized hemp doesn't even wash.
Yeah,
and so that was like my first real like hash washing experiment that failed.
Yeah.
I built a fucking sweet room. We spent, I don't know, $10,000-$15,000 or no, we spent more because we bought the freeze dryer. So we spent like over $20,000 getting invested into a project that then just didn't go anywhere. And then we had to pivot and go, okay, we're going to do dry ice sifting instead of ice water hash, blah, blah, blah. But nonetheless, it was like, okay, we now have a room that was built for this that we have to decommission and use for something else. And I mean, that's why I think I've been given this opportunity to like go build labs everywhere because I've done it so many times in so many environments. It's like I'm ready to go.
Yeah, you learn from your mistakes, man, and that's when I first talked to you about it. You're like, I want to, try it out. We brought all that keef over. You're just pressing black, nasty fucking oil, dude. Just disgusting shit.
It was way better before we pressed it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were just ruining it,
destroying it.
But just where you went from that, you just took off with it in a matter of just months. It seemed, or maybe like a year. But just going, and then you got those arbor presses when you got the lab down the road here. Well, it used to be there. You got those arbor presses, and then you started, not saying that I knew everything, but I thought I was a few steps ahead because it was such a new thing rosin was, I feel like, around here at the time. But then you were like, no, dude, like, this is what you got to do. Like, lower temps, easing the pressure, take a chill pill, and don't burn the fuck out of this material.
Oh, yeah. And well, we were, granted, working with Boo Boo, but there's a way to press Boo Boo and there's a way to press really nice material, and they're definitely a lot different.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was hard to relate our experience at the hemp facility to weed because once I realized that the hemp thing was kind of falling off, I started practicing making actual like THC hash rosin.
Yeah.
And that was when I realized all the value of the machines that we had. I was going, oh my God, we're just sitting here
wasting time.
We could have been making THC rosin out of this thing and made millions of dollars. Like, what were we doing?
Yeah.
And I had, people around me like, Tommy over at Happy Cabbage. And then I also knew people that knew Grape God too. So, I mean, being exposed to the best hash makers in the state, if not country, right around here helped to excel my experience level so fast just by being around them.
Yeah.
Seeing like the quality of their hash, for instance. I mean, you can tell this is my competition. Okay. And what I'm making here is brown or gold at best. Something is not working out. And what it came down to is like a little bit of processing technique and mostly just input material.
Yeah.
What I was washing was shit. What they're washing is grown for hash. It's handled for hash and it comes out 6-star because it's a proven practice that they've figured out. Everybody else is trying to make shit into gold with rosin, which you just can't do.
They're throwing like water leaf and shit you don't want in there. Like, elaborate on that. Like, what is like just a little bit like the difference in input material? Like they're taking all the sugar or water leaf off, or like what makes that kind of difference? Do you think?
I mean, part of it's growing comes down to how you grow it, how
Okay.
you manicure your plants during growing, because hash plants usually have been touched very, very little. And I mean, they're people that are growing indoor for hash have practices where they're not like walking through their rows and letting their plants touch them ever. Like they follow SOPs that are more like stringent than other people. They just kind of grow plants and let them grow, and they touch them as little as possible. So that's
Yeah.
one of the main things. But then it's also coming to harvesting, how you harvest it. If you're shucking it by hand, that's one thing that's bad. Or if you're not fan leafing by hand, there's a lot of shortcuts people will take that reduces their yields.
Yeah.
And then you know, processing is kind of something that everybody follows a fairly similar SOP. The practice itself is pretty similar, but growers are kind of the biggest problem. Is growers don't know how to make hash. So a lot of hash producers grow their own because then they can really control when they harvest. For instance, if you harvest it too late, instead of white hash, you'll get gold hash.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's still desirable, it's still terpy, but it's not what the market wants, which
They want that isolate looking, crazy looking shit like um oh, I guess I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I understand what you're saying.
they want white, wet looking hash.
Yeah.
That's what people want. That's what the homies call for. So
Yeah.
that's what you get. But it actually doesn't really make sense because if you let it go longer, it gets more potent.
Yeah, it's like
The
I think of
colors.
the trichomes, like when you're harvesting a plant. A lot of the misconceptions, it's people think it's based on the color of the physical pistils on the plant, like the hairs, which it's actually not. Like those people are like, oh, those are orange, it's done, but it's actually the color of the trichome that really determines its potency and readiness. Is that correct? Like a correct statement? Do you think? You know what I'm saying? Like if you look at it under a microscope, the trichomes themselves go from like a clear to like a milky and then to like an amber.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely gets potent, more potent over time.
Okay. Because I've had arguments with people about that where they're just like, no, you want it like when they're clear or when the hairs are brown, it's done. I'm just like, I don't think
That
that's
sounds
how.
pretty ignorant.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the amber is the trichome degrading. So really, you want it to be fully milky and starting to turn amber.
Starting. Okay.
That would show that it's at its maximum potency and starting to
Okay.
mature into something else. Um, I think when it comes to hash, though, it's really just about getting the highest yield possible with the color that you're looking for,
Okay.
which is obviously the white.
The way like okay. Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, that's I didn't think about it. Like I know a little bit about hash. I've messed around with my own little experiments and just stuff that you can make at your house, and I never really put that much thought into it. I'm just like, oh, this stuff looks frosty, it looks good, make
Mm-hmm.
it, and then that depends on, or then that gives you your result is how you handle it. I didn't think it was down to the physical care of the plant, which I mean, I guess makes sense if you want to have that fire. You don't want people like grabbing your buds and with your gloves and getting all the oils and whatever on their
Mm-hmm.
hands and causing some sort of loss there. So, I got a little list here. I'm thinking just to carry it. So, what do you think? Like,
I'm ready for a beer too.
wait, all right, we'll pause this really quick and we'll come back to this question. Where's my mouse?
Just being a country fair in part was awesome.
Yeah,
The shows are insane. Like during the day, it's nothing compared to what they have at night.
I went there.
And it's too hot during the day too. You're like just baking. It's not that comfortable if you're not in at night.
The manager just went there and he has a mini bus. I helped him put a new transmission in because it blew up and got it all set up for him. And he went there, set up camp, and was running. I think he was running one of the gates or whatever for a little bit. Oh,
I took more on it since
Oh.
you were slacking.
sorry. Thanks, dude.
This is the lever sour. It's pretty delicious.
Yeah, dude. Thank you for sharing. Cheers. Yeah,
Cheers.
We're rolling right here a little bit. Oh, that's like,
That's a good one. We saved the best for last.
yo, that's fucking amazing.
Gives me horrible heartburn, but
Sour.
it's pretty delicious.
See, that's the thing with these. Like, I noticed, like, with the Great Notion ones, they're so good, but they're so rich. It's like you have, like, two or three, and
Oh,
at
yeah.
least, like, for me, it's like you feel so full, and they're also just, like, so,
ill.
strong.
Makes you feel ill.
But so going back to what I was asking, I'm kind of just going off this crappy little list right here. So I was gonna see like what you think. Like you got the lab going in New York, you got labs set up in other locations. Is there like have you thought ahead like on what like expanding from that, or like you just kind of taking it a step at a time? Like what is the future, do you think, for this industry? Like if
Mm.
if they reschedule to schedule 3, I don't know if that would affect the industry all that much. I think it would, but I don't know. Have you put much thought into that?
Yeah. I mean, my goal over the next, I would say, 4 to 5 years is to just build as many labs and set up in as many states as possible.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I'm hoping that I can continue expanding kind of my horizons on consulting for cannabis operations worldwide. That way, I have people in various parts of the world that are kind of getting started in medical programs in other countries.
Dude, you can consult for Israel, dude. They need hash producers, I'm pretty sure. Because they're like one of the few countries over there that's legal.
Yeah, it'd be like Israel, Thailand,
Germany, maybe.
places in Europe.
Yeah. Dude, that'd be so cool if you got to that
So,
point. Oh my
I mean, I
god.
have friends that do like consulting for Dole and like fruit plantations, and they do kind of like the supply chain. They develop supply chains for nations. They go there and go, okay, you have a crop, but you still need to be able to harvest it, package it, and then ship it. And so he's the guy that basically gets contracted by the fruit company, in this case Dole, goes to that nation, develops a whole supply chain to like help the infrastructure develop to like build like the shipping and the harvesting machines, and like they give the technology that we have over to these nations and help them develop this whole supply chain. So I'm hoping to do that with cannabis.
Damn, dude. Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like it's getting close to where, I mean, like just for the world in general, like it seems like more countries are slowly legalizing. Like I think, was it like Singapore or like one of those uh, countries over there? I'm pretty sure that they're starting to legalize. So I mean, it's the demand is going to be endless for that, I imagine. And I feel like just even here in the states, if we finally go fully, nationally legal, you got the whole Bible Belt that's going to need it, and yeah, there's huge opportunity in that, I imagine. What would you like if you're starting like all these labs? I mean, kind of tangenting off that, if you were to like, if someone were to ask you like, what are the requirements to be able to work for you in one of these labs, or have you like franchise, like what would you tell someone about that? Do you know what I mean?
Um, yeah, so that's kind of a complicated one. There's certain ways that companies, I would say, replicate really rapidly because they avoid some of the hurdles of like building a business yourself. It's why like a franchise, they provide an SOP and they give people the opportunity to invest in that franchise, and then it's up to them to run it. But if the person that owns the company is trying to train their own staff and to like do things that are more in detail when it comes to like setting up infrastructure for a business,
Mm-hmm.
it slows your like production or your ability to replicate down massively.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, what we're doing right now is kind of different than what we're going to be doing in the future. Is what I'm saying is the way that we would do it normally would be to just spend a lot of time, I guess, like developing your own infrastructure, and instead, what I learned actually in the last 3 years is I don't need a location, I don't need a license. All I need is the knowledge and the tools.
Yeah.
So I go in and provide a service. I piggyback their license, their location. I pay them a royalty. I give them a percentage of what I make, but then that gives me the ability to not have to be obligated to like managing a building and paying all the overhead and in some cases hiring staff. You can literally hire other people's staff in a lot of these cases. So
Gotcha.
it's
Okay.
depending on how you try to build your business and like who you involve or who you obligate to do what, you can really replicate fast.
Okay.
So we have partners in other states that we can basically work with on what they're already doing, and we can add to it instead of having to create something from nothing, which would require getting building permits, getting the license to do
Zoning
that,
approval.
zoning, like it takes a
Yeah.
long time. So basically trying to work with people that are already doing that and just giving them a chunk of what you make that's the move.
So it's not as easy as someone just being like, "Hey, I got I mean, I guess maybe if they had the money, but it's not as easy as someone like, hey, like I want to do this, like come do it for me. It's not as easy as that. It's better if they have something preset, like a farm already or whatever.
Yeah.
Essentially, okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, especially something as complicated as a lab. And at a certain point, you got to understand it's making, by definition, a controlled substance. So that's not something you want to play around with. As far as
Well, there's a lot of red tape. So for us to try to create that ourselves, or like in any case, if you're, let's say you're going internationally and you want to try to do this in another country, but you want to do it yourself, you don't want to involve the locals, nobody's going to want you to do shit. But if you're actually creating revenue streams for the people that are already there, that are already, the ones that created that opportunity in the first place, you're actually helping to like diversify the market, and you're helping to create a more sustainable system that we've seen fail so many times over and over in Oregon and other, California, Washington.
yeah,
All these legal states are so, they require so much profit that they haven't been able to absorb all the losses over time. As the prices go down, these companies that bought multi-million-dollar facilities have such a high overhead that they can't afford to sell their shit at the price that it's worth today.
yeah,
So like what we've learned from our own experiences in Oregon and through watching all these legal industries develop, we've realized that like for us as weed companies, we have to kind of work together in like a competitive way where we're almost like helping our competition, but at the same time we're all reducing our overhead, and we're all trying to like piggyback as many things and like mark things up together. So we're actually controlling more of the market because it's in all of our best interest.
yeah,
So this thing that we're doing, I'm saying, is just a really unique opportunity where you have companies that have successful companies in the West Coast now merging together to create an opportunity for them all to kind of show their strong suits, but also kind of learn from their own experiences coming from the West Coast. And we're trying to create a different type of market.
That's interesting you bring that up, because the last episode, Kelly and I kind of pondered a bit about how saturated the market got and how some companies here kind of got in over their head and not doing that. I didn't even like consider that idea, but I mean, I'm sure you understand. Like we've seen a lot of, you've probably seen it. I've seen a lot of companies go under because they invest all this money, and then the price of weed or whatever it is goes way down, and then they lose their ass. And so I guess just thinking about that previous episode, I guess that is one way they.
We're working way more as a co-op.
Yeah.
Like in the New York market, from what I've been able to kind of determine at this point, it's very, I mean, like I'm not going to say too much, but we're literally like all of the like people that I would consider our competition in the state are actually helping us.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's something that, because they're extending that, I mean, I'm talking about basic things like just testing. You're like, who do you go test with? And they go, this guy. Or we're selling extracts back to each other or back and forth. And we're trying to like figure out where the value of the market is, because it's so new that people don't even know how to really value a product that on the West Coast is the most valuable. In New York, distillate and rosin are actually, distillate is more valuable than rosin.
Really?
As far as food grade, yeah.
Wow.
Which makes no sense.
That doesn't make any sense.
So
it's weird.
It actually blows my mind that like they're not having that developed market has actually created such a lack of awareness for quality and standards that now they're selling bong hits of vape pens to people, and they think that's cool.
I've seen that with my own eyes over there.
If you try to offer that to somebody on the West Coast, we'd slap it out of your hand, or it'd be like, "Are you serious? Like, is that rosin at least?" Or we'd say something. But these guys are literally just smoking vape pens, distillate vape pens that are not even that good tasting. So it's, and I'm not ragging on that because I think there's a market for that. But the people that are doing that think that that's what we're doing over here.
Yeah,
and that's the problem. Is like, okay, well. Actually, we're smoking, $70 grams of 6-star rosin out of a custom, $2,000 dab rig.
Yeah, a clean rig. Like,
that's not the culture that's over there, which is totally a thing. But what I'm saying is, because it's such a new, opportunity, there's so few solventless companies out there. We're all trying to kind of work together to raise the awareness and raise value, because we know it's such a big market altogether that we can all succeed but none of us are going to succeed if we don't put a baseline in. If we're not working together and we're just like running towards the bottom,
Yeah.
especially in a market where people don't even see the value yet.
Yeah.
They're years away from understanding, oh, wait, rosin's that much better than all this other shit that I'm being fed.
Yeah.
But once we develop our products and these guys like cooperatively with all of our competitors and the market's now saturated with good rosin, that's when suddenly people are going to realize, oh, I like to eat the rosin edibles because they make me feel better. And this distillate crap that makes me feel, anxiety or whatever,
Yeah.
So
that's so reassuring to hear you say that, because I guess the last episode I kind of made it sound, well, I mean, because it was depressing there for a minute because there wasn't that kind of cooperation with, at least as far as I knew, with companies like that across the board. But going from that, I got a couple friends in New York that I went and visited there in August, and I saw what they were. And yeah, the stuff they're smoking, dude, is sometimes borderline scary. Like the flower, like just on the local street, isn't good, and a lot of their stuff they're getting is from like the reservations. There's a Native American reservation north of where I'm talking about, and none of that stuff gets properly tested. It's all, a lot of it's fake terps, and these pens aren't certified, and so it's like, you don't know if you're smoking this vitamin E distillate blended oil or if it's bad pens you're getting heavy metal toxicity from. It's just, but they just don't understand that, like you said, because that culture or that knowledge just isn't there. And yeah, it's not their fault, and I don't mean to bash on it either or whatever, but it's like there's been a few of my friends out there that are just like, nah, man, like this stuff is just as good as what, cause I had a couple of them come out and visit here and they've tried what we have, and they claim some of that stuff is as good as ours. I'm like, it's not, dude. It doesn't even come close. Like, there's some stuff that looks good, like the sauces or whatever. I still think the sauce is bunk, even over here in some cases. But it's
well, I think good extract is coming. And
yeah.
that's where,
over there, you mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, the regulated market is finally mature enough that there's actual shops that are, I would say, getting access to better quality stuff that would make it competitive. So in the past, the only reason you don't go to a dispensary, you'd go to a pop-up shop.
Yeah.
Pop-up shops had access to market that was, stuff from California, Oregon, all the best states. Pop-up shops, basically just buy weed. They're not regulated by testing or anything. So like it was just a legally fed market that was actually like semi-legit for a while. A lot of people were making a lot of money by just...
Well, that's like my one homie. He had like a pop-up trailer, and but he had to like gift, like basically you go in there and you buy a sticker, and then you pay like $60 for a sticker, and then you're gifted this flower or whatever.
Right, but we all know that's not legitimate, and that's not what was going to be regulated in the future. We knew that it was going to be forced.
That's just where it started.
I know, that's what I'm saying, is like it opened, because they legalized it, it opened up the door to have all these like faux shops that, for whatever reason weren't getting regulated until now. The legal operations are lobbying to eliminate that because it's taking away from them.
Well, I didn't know that,
yeah. It's being fed by better material. So the pop-up shops have better quality stuff for cheaper in general because it's not being sourced from the limited market that they have in New York.
Okay.
Because that's all grown in New York. So if it's legal, it's grown there. If it's a pop-up shop, it could be literally from Mendocino County, whatever, it's...
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. I did not know that.
That's why, like, I think it's been troubling for people to get started, is because in the rec market, they pay so much more for equal quality because it's grown in New York, whereas somebody that runs a pop-up shop, they're going to California and they're buying their stuff or whatever, and they're getting it however they get it. But at the end of the day, to compare the pricing that you can buy it in California and Oregon compared to somebody that grew it in New York with testing costs and all the other, the facilities fees, because running a business legitimately in New York is a very expensive thing.
Oh yeah.
Running a food truck, sticker truck that you buys weed from wherever is a little bit different when it comes to your overhead and profit to loss ratio, especially if you're not being regulated or taxed. I don't know if that was all taxed, but
I have no idea.
I imagine it wasn't all taxed. So
yeah.
Either way, that's like it, because they're regulating that now. It's pushing people to have to go to the legal shops, and they're starting to invest in more like opportunities for rec operations to integrate, that's the part that I actually really want to talk about, is they're really cool with weed and alcohol in New York, and that is a huge difference. Like, I almost got kicked out of the McMinimans in Portland because I was assing out a pipe. And they were like, "You'll never be able to come back." Like,
Really?
Edgefield, they were like really pissed that I had a freaking pipe at Edgefield, and I wasn't drinking. I was literally in the parking lot assing out a pipe that he didn't catch me smoking. I had already smoked. But nonetheless, it was like such an aggressive move. He was like, "We'll lose our LLCC license if blah, blah, blah." He just said some bullshit. I'm like, dude, we're in Oregon. Come on. Are
Like,
you serious?
chill out.
But nonetheless, in New York, you can literally just smoke weed in groups of people. Like, I mean, they don't give a shit. And you're drinking a cocktail, like, at a regulated
What?
bar.
I didn't know
dude.
that.
I mean, people hit their vape pens in bars.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know.
And nobody seems to care. Like, in podunk towns, too. Like, little teeny towns. They're way more cool with weed being just everywhere now that it's legal.
Damn. No shit.
And they're new. It's.
Someone needs to open a lounge over there. See, that's one thing I wish we could have is like, my buddy Joe, we were talking about like if Oregon was more cooler about it, it'd be such a great gig to start up like a lounge where you can come in, you can have your beer, cocktails or whatever, have a smoking room.
They won't do it because of the LCC though. You can't
exactly.
do weed and alcohol.
Yeah.
Which is bullshit because everybody does.
Yeah.
When you drink, you're like, well, I might smoke a joint.
And
or
also,
I might hit
it's
my vape
under
pen
the
100
same
times.
commission, so it's like, I just don't understand why it's been like that. But if New York can get away with that, that's an industry people should look into, is making smoke lounges. Like,
Well, dude, I went on a boat party, actually, like a yacht party, a private yacht party put on by a bunch of our affiliates. Yeah, dude, it was probably 200 people on a big old boat on Long Island.
oh,
And we just motorboated around the bay. We didn't even go into the ocean. It was like the lamest. We just went in circles in the bay for like 4 hours. It was pretty
How big was
lame.
the yacht?
It was huge. It was a ship. It was not a yacht. It was a freaking ship.
So at that point, it's like, I guess if it's big enough, you can get lost inside or whatever. But yeah, that is kind of weird. They wouldn't leave the bay.
It was an experience. I don't know if I would go to that ever again. Like, that kind of thing just doesn't really attract me. Being stuck on a boat with a bunch of, I don't know, really high, kind of awkward people is like, and not to diss the people, it was just me being like too high and awkward to talk to the rest of the people. I'm like, well, I'm here and then I'm on a boat and I can't leave now. I did all the, basically I found out that there was no growers there. I was there to like go network with growers, and then it turned out to be just the people that shop at the dispensary. That I did get to meet the dispensary. That's going to be a really awesome connection for us. So that was great. But nonetheless, it was. I was just planning on doing a lot more networking on the ship because I thought it was going to be like growers in New York, and it turned out to be people that buy shit from a dispensary. And I was like, well, fuck.
Well, I feel
Different dynamic of people. I'm not really trying to like go make a bunch of new friends on a ship tonight, but they did have an open bar, which was really awesome.
That's tight.
And they're just giving out edibles the whole time.
They'd let you
and,
smoke on the boat and
yeah,
everything.
dude, just like go up and take. But they were letting. That's the weird thing is people were doing bong hits of distillate vape pens.
What, like they hooked a vape pen to the bong?
Yeah.
Oh, those poor
Which
bastards.
I like. I mean, they make vape pens. Like I've seen rosin pens that have the mouthpiece and stuff. Like it makes sense, I guess. But just, I don't know. I would never want to do that with distillate.
Yeah, I feel like because the water's just going to absorb a majority of the distillate and you're losing the potency of it.
Yeah, I would just hit the vape pen. Like,
Yeah,
I have no problem hitting a vape pen without a water piece.
Like,
unless
yeah.
it's too hot or something.
Yeah, like the water, all it's going to do is, it's going to cool down the vapor, but it's
Right.
like, yeah, I don't know.
I just didn't see the point.
It
seemed odd.
Yeah.
There was a cool kind of technology that they had, though. They have these vapor cups. And it's the same thing, but the technology is sound. Like, you basically, the pulse rate for the burner on the vape, it's like a 5-10 thread vape. It increases the pulse rate, so then it makes really thick smoke.
Oh.
And they put that into cups with garnishes of fruit and shit.
Oh, okay.
And then they stick a straw in there with some ice, and you literally sip vape. It's like
That's
a
kind of
vapor
cool.
cup. It's really, it's gimmicky, but it's like gimmicky in all the right ways. I think it's awesome. People love the idea. I would never really like become somebody that's like the customer base, but I love the idea that there's a ton of people out there that buy $7 coffees all the time and it doesn't do shit.
Yeah.
You know, a caffeine high is like, Can you imagine if you give some like suburban mom a $12 freaking potent dab hit in the freaking cup? She's like, ooh, 110 cocktails, and I'm more talkative, and my joints don't hurt. Like,
Yeah.
that shit's gonna take off. I feel like that lady's gonna come back for a 4 day. She's like, my husband's not even gonna notice I'm getting 4 vape cups a day at Starbucks or
Yeah.
Star, whatever.
Yeah. That's interesting because I know, like, back in the day, if I'm not mistaken, they used to smoke, like, bubble hash in a similar way where you would have, like an ashtray and you put, like a cork with a needle on it, and you stick a piece of hash on the needle. Then
Oh
you
yeah, you just
light it,
burn
and
it.
then you put the cup over, and it fills the cup with the hash
Hmm.
smoke, and you just inhale. I've heard of that before, so I wonder.
That's like an OG version.
That's like
But this one has like
1970s. Like,
the
yeah.
presentation is all really cool, so you can actually shoot the smoke. So basically, you'd have like your Starbucks cup, right, with the clear one for
Yeah.
cold beverages, and you take this weird. It looks like it's like an orb or something, it's like a saucer,
Like a cap, kind of, or something.
kind of like a cap, but it's
The-
big.
Yeah.
And anyways, it has like you put the vape pen on there, and it just shoots smoke into this thing, but it's like really dense smoke, so it stays on the bottom and it doesn't just like
Oh,
start
that's.
bursting out.
Oh, okay.
It's all about how like the pulse rate goes, I guess. I don't know.
It must be like the same concept where if you take like you see those vapors that use the nicotine vape and they can like let the smoke like collapse on a table, where it just
Mhm.
settles. Like it's probably something. Yeah.
Dude, I
That.
mean, I took one of them before the show at the house. It was just a vape pen, but it was like on the certain pulse rate thing.
Yeah.
And I was dying for hours. I was so stoned. I was so mad. I was like, dude, I have so much shit to do today. Are you serious? And like, it was like 9 o'clock in the morning. I just showered, and he was like, "Oh, try this thing." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Just thinking it was like a normal vape. No,
Something next level.
it was like a dab. I would say it was like it was
Yeah.
comparable to a dab, but I was imagining I was just hitting a vape for a second. So
I'd be
was terrible.
interested to try that. That'd be kind of cool. Were you able to bring any of your products over there to demonstrate or show those guys what you working with, or you just kind of had to deal with what they had? Like you show them any of the rosin you made, or
I mean, yeah, they know what our product looks like,
okay, for sure. Yeah, that's
but
that's
not really. We didn't like bring a bunch of product for them.
gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a different ball game. You should if you get the chance, I'll remind you after the show, you should send me some pictures if you don't mind of what you make, and I'll edit them into this so that way people can see, cuz it's just truly amazing. Like you see the color and the texture of this rosin, and like if you're a true extract connoisseur, it's the A game. You can't get much higher than what that like quality wise. Yeah, physically, but quality wise, you really can't go. But like no distillate can touch that stuff, and it's just a different ball game.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think we undervalue what we have here for so cheap and what we
Yeah.
have such access to, and that's
Yeah.
why most of the good product doesn't even stay here. I mean, people are basically benefiting from how cheap it is here just to take it other places. I mean, it's
Yeah.
paradise if you're a stoner. I mean, it's cheap. You can find $40 ounces. You can go. I mean, a lot of brands still 6 Star for like $25-$30.
Yeah, I remember when it was first, and it was Happy Cabbage was really the first one to get the real deal on the shelves, and they weren't messing around, man. It was like $100 a gram, 100 or it was like $80 a gram.
It was 80 for a
Like
while.
it was no joke, and I tell you what, that stuff was amazing. But after the market continued on with it, it became more popular. I never really observed their prices after that, but I just knew that
Their
was
prices have been pretty steady, I would say.
it's a
I mean,
okay.
they've gone down a little bit, but they're pretty steady.
Yeah, I mean, it is the top tier material. You can't get much better. I mean, not that I always go out shopping for rosin at dispensaries, but after most of the stuff I've seen, nothing touches that stuff.
Right.
It's like you said, it's that white clay textury shit, and it's just out of this world. It's like, so I guess we could, because the process is complete. If for people that probably don't know, like we're talking about I mean, you can explain the process better than I, but there's no gases or chemicals involved with the process of this stuff. It's just heat, pressure, and water and cold. You can take it from there. If the just kind of basic explanation on what it is for whoever's listening that doesn't know how like what the process of why rosin is superior.
Yeah, so rosin is just a full spectrum expression of the cannabis plant. So basically, you use ice and water to break trichomes off of the wet material if it's fresh frozen. Then you dry that with a freeze dryer or in the old school method like a pizza box. Once it's dry, you put that into a bag, like a 25 to 35 micron bag, and you press that at around 170 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. And
Yeah, it's like a
you get
tea
your,
bag kind of. Yeah.
very much like a tea bag. Yeah, it's just a filter.
Yeah. And then that's it. You're done. There's no purging. There's no.
There's no solvents at all.
Yeah,
The only
it's
thing,
clean.
you're just drying the water off of the hash.
Yeah. Which is amazing. Like when I first learned about it, it totally blew my mind because before that, like I'm sure rosin was around before. I'm just thinking about when I learned about it. It was all, crazy people in their backyards blasting butane hash oil out of PVC pipes and just doing the craziest stuff. I mean, you had the real labs.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. It's just, it was out there. There was people doing that
Yeah.
but
Well, it's
I
successful
never
for
did
a
it
lot of
because
people.
I was too
People
scared
did
of
really
that.
well with it for a long time.
Yeah.
It was only the real idiots that made a bad name for it. If you
Blowing
were
up,
outside, for
yeah.
instance, you're not going to have nearly as many issues as if you're inside.
Yeah.
That was something that you can tell, like, are you going to be fairly successful doing this or not? If you're open blasting in a building, you're definitely going to blow up. Like, all it takes is one static charge on your jacket, and that's it. Or use, on your, flip flops, scooting them across the carpet, and all of a sudden,
boom, dude. And there was
people just don't need to be open blasting inside.
No. Yeah, and then the closed loop system came, and of course, yeah, I'm not saying this was butane extraction in general. Like you have professional labs that really know what they're doing. It's closed loop, protected. I'm just talking about
Butane is the way to extract. I think if you can make a good resin from butane, that is, I mean, other than it changing the carbon molecule slightly, that's kind of weird. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But in general, BHO is awesome. BHO is such a versatile product. You can turn it into like waxes, shatters, diamonds, sauces. I mean, the list goes on. Like it's the best quality, I would say, aside from rosin.
Yeah.
But like when it comes to efficient processing, I think it covers a lot of bases that rosin doesn't.
Yeah.
So if you have something that's a good expression for rosin, let's say it just yields really well, it has a really sought after terpene profile, and it's easy to grow, or it grows in a short amount of time, and it like fits the parameters that you're looking for like an indoor cultivation,
it's faster to blast 20-something pounds of material versus squeezing 20 pounds of material.
Well, if it's 1% return on rosin, make that a good blasted material is what I'm saying. If it's a 5 or 8% return rosin genetic, grow it for rosin.
Yeah.
But BHO, you can pretty much do all of them. So I'm just saying having access to both is good.
Yeah.
Having, a BHO, like...
They have their places.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not talking shit about BHO. I'm just thinking about, like, the old days before I learned about rosin and the people at home doing their own crazy shit.
I just appreciate good BHO is all I'm saying. Like, I think BHO distillate, I've never been like, oh, man, that's amazing distillate. Or that's... I mean, there's bad distillate out there, too. But, like, once it's clean, like 3-4 passes in, or it's just, like, really good quality and clean distillate... It's not like it tastes good or bad. It tastes like shit without good terps. So, like, all you're tasting is the terpenes that they reintroduce.
Yeah.
And that's why I like, BHO over that, is because you're taking... It's fire in, fire out, kind of, more so. I mean, they can...
That's like when when I go shopping, I like just buying classic BHO shatter, and it's so ridiculous if you like go into dispensaries, at least around here.
But it's like worthless.
You can't find it anywhere.
Yeah,
Everyone all has like diamond sauces or butters and shit, and it's all like you said, like distillate with some ice, with some diamond, and then fake. It's like 13% terps. I'm like, I'm smoking bleach right now.
Synthetic amounts of fucking terpenes.
It's
exactly.
insane.
You're like, what are you doing? I don't need your apple pie terpenes thrown on top of my shit. Like,
and I always tell people, I was like, just raw shatter. I just want good quality shatter. I don't want this crazy sauce banana shit.
I used to smoke the white label Applegate Valley Farm shit all the time. I love their shit.
Yeah, they make good shatter.
Everything they made was so freaking delicious. It was like the terpiest, best BHO I've ever had.
Yep.
Constantly. It was just shatter. Or like snap and pull. It's kind of, I guess, not shattery all the time.
Like the pull and snap. Or do you remember the fucking Serious Extracts dab sticks? It was like the 1 gram rods of shatter. Do you remember that? I wonder if I could find a picture of that
No,
quick.
I don't remember that at all.
But this was like
the tubes. I remember like the tubes of CO2 oil and distillate that they give you.
I think actually, now I think about it, it was
gross.
It's like it's a shatter that they would form in a it's these, and you would get it in a freaking. I'm pretty sure Sirius isn't a company anymore, but yeah, they would roll the gram into these rods, and then they put them in the PTFE paper and put them in joint tubes.
That must have been such a pain in the ass.
Well, it was when you're dumb and you're just like doing stupid shit. It's fun because you can pull it out, it come off the PTFE, and you can just grab it by the end of the stick and bury it in the nail. But the problem is the heat would transfer up the rod, and so all of a sudden it's just pouring onto there. And if anyone wants to check it out, look up Serious Extracts dab sticks to see what I'm talking about. It
sounds like a terrible time.
Yeah, it was. You know,
it doesn't look very good either. It looks pretty dark.
Yeah, a lot of it does not
very
have a good look on it.
It's all cured.
Yeah, but these guys were hot for a while. Sirius was one of the big ones. I don't know.
Oregon's market used to be a lot different than it is now. I feel like there's a lot more quality coming into it. Yeah. I mean, imagine back in the days when medical growers were able to go into dispensaries and just sell their 2 pounds or. I mean, dude, I remember I sold a bunch of quarter pounds to a dispensary once. It was like 10 quarter pounds or some random shit. They're all like R&D for my grow. And I was just like, man, these all came out really good. And I've got like a bunch of quarter pounds. And so I just went over to my buddy Brad. And he was like, yeah, I'll buy every one of them. I did testing on them, which I never should have done because that cost me a ton.
Oh, yeah,
but I don't know. Somehow it did okay, I guess. I don't know.
Back in the day, man, when I first, it was like right after high school, and I was really trying to, I had my marijuana worker's permit card, and I was growing that hydro indoor, and my mom was working at a dispensary, I won't say, but she was able to get my bud. It was like 2 pounds of hydro. She got it tested, it passed. And they bought it, but yeah, like you said, the testing was expensive. But that was like the one time that was when it was strictly medical before recreational. And that was the first time I sold to a dispensary, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so cool!"
It felt so sketch.
And
I was like, "There's no way this is legal. This cannot be legal."
Yeah, but when rec hit, that market was just cut. It was done overnight.
But I mean, can you imagine what the dankness that they were shopping for? I mean, just all these like craft indoor grows.
It was totally different.
The material that we were getting at dispensaries was like as fresh as it gets, and it hasn't. Now we're dealing with big brands that are putting out product that's 3, 4, 5 months old. Yeah. This shit was literally like weeks from drying, being dropped off, and we're like needing the money so bad. We're like, just take it, just consign it. I don't care. Like, everybody needs all these quantity minimums these days, and the dispensaries were making good money, but the growers were also like just stoked that they could work with people other than sketchy people on the gray market.
It was so cool.
I can take my overage to a dispensary. That's amazing. Let's go.
Yeah, and I talked to Kelly about this in the last episode, just a little bit about how it was really nice for the medical grower back then to be able to. The culture was much different. The cannabis culture, I feel like,
way healthier.
It was. Yeah, people cared more about their shit, and people took time with it. They really looked at their plants.
There's also more money in it.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, pounds weren't. I can find like the average price of maybe like light depth stuff is like $700 a pound anymore, and it's just like. It's like half of what it was worth just 7 years ago, 8 years ago. You know what I mean?
We're selling $100 pounds on the rec market. $100 pounds.
Yeah.
Like dry and trimmed. $100. That's what are we doing?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care how shitty it is. If it's $100, don't grow it.
You're spending more money in fertilizer and
it's one of the things I want to kind of bring up at some point is like the fair trade aspect of cannabis is so devalued because the value of cannabis is so low. So now we don't value the people that grow the cannabis or that process it or like the people that we are attracting to this industry are the wrong people. We want to give opportunities that get people that are going to excel the industry, that bring education and new ideas, and like we want to diversify the weed industry as much as possible by creating like a real opportunity network that attracts not only just what we have as a bunch of hippies that think that they belong in weed because they can smoke weed and do it.
Yeah.
That's not what we want. We want to give opportunities to people that want to work, that want to make the weed industry better, but that comes with valuing yourself and valuing your own standards of like what you bring to the table is not just a stoner hippie mentality, but you're bringing
it's
together
work,
a level of professionalism and an obligation of responsibility that you have ambitions and like you want the people around you to succeed, so you kind of obligate them, like we were talking about earlier. It's like when you work with professionals, you know, it kind of enlists you into being more professional and proposing yourself or composing yourself differently.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I feel like that's the point I was trying to make in the last episode, but I think I did a bad job at explaining it that way. But that, I mean, maybe not the giving the opportunity part and go that far, but as far as who should be in the industry and where it should be now is, yeah, that's important. And I think it's, like we kind of talked about earlier, we saw what happened when people coming in at when rec hit, and it's just a bunch of people who shouldn't be in it throwing a bunch of money at it, putting out shit product or whatever is kind of contributing to the devaluation for one, for flooding the market, and two, like putting out subpar material. And also,
but those are the guys that are, I would say, being most successful.
Unfortunately,
because they're like brands. I'm not gonna actually drop any brands because that might be unfortunate.
Yeah,
but there's big enough brands out there that push boof.
Yeah, I know a few.
They're $100 million companies, but nobody actually knows them for good anything. They don't really have the components that everybody really wants. They just have components that everybody that has limited access or limited knowledge. Like thinks is what they want.
Yeah,
it's
they
like
can
the
push
whole
out
like
weight.
distillate thing being blown up on the East Coast thing. Like once these people realize that they can make BHO in New York or rosin in New York that's way better than all this other shit, they're not gonna want the distillate vape pens anymore unless they're super super cheap. And that's the problem with their market right now is distillate's more expensive than rosin. And so it's like, wait, so you're saying I can buy BHO and rosin at cheaper prices than I can buy distillate for? Like,
really?
What are you thinking? I mean, we should obviously be making vapes and shit and selling cheaper than the distillate because people are gonna realize, holy shit, this is way better, and it's cheaper. I mean, it's like the opposite. Here, distillate's the cheapest, and all the live resins and rosins are expensive. So why wouldn't you just use that to your advantage and just undercut the distillate market while people are gonna buy your shit because they're gonna be like, whoa, this is not mango terps. This is really dank freaking live rosin.
Yeah, this is proper real
this tastes
cannabis
like when
terps.
I smell a live resin or like a
like
live
mango
plant.
kush or something. You know.
So, anyways, it's exciting because there's that opportunity, but the whole aspect of just like how unhealthy the culture is here. That's something I'm wanting to really focus on as I try to replicate something in the weed industry. I want to focus on developing some kind of awareness about like the holisticness of the culture. Like what we're trying to create in the weed culture is not just products that are legal for people to smoke, but we want to encourage people that are the people that brought up legalization, the medical side of things. Like why is medical cannabis not even a conversation anymore? Why is it not about developing opportunities for people in environments that are normally excluded from opportunities? A lot of the people that started weed companies were never entrepreneurs before. They were doing bullshit landscaping, or not to say landscaping is bullshit, but like they weren't doing what they wanted to do because it wasn't legal. And then as soon as it was legal, they're like, all these hippies came out of the blue that sold trinkets, and now they're freaking growing weed, and they're like, and it was successful for a while. But then now that it's not, they're all going back to being contractors, and we've seen a lot of our like peers kind of just fizzle off and realize like the opportunity that they had dreamed about was like catastrophic. It wasn't sustainable.
Well, that's like, I won't, talk about myself that much, but like that was kind of when I first got into it. That was kind of my dream was to, I was doing deep water culture, hydroponics, and I kind of want to do things my way with that. And that just as someone that kind of happened to, it was just like I thought I was going somewhere, like when I sold that weed to the dispensary and kind of started to really develop this certain process that I found worked for me. It was like I'd never had a lot of money. You know, I was very lucky in the situation I got in. But yeah, as soon as the market became corporate or whatever you want to call it,
Saturated.
saturated, it just there was no, like, the money that I was turning out of there, it was cost me more in my power bill and fertilizer than the weed became worth. Like before that happened, the weed I was selling, I could be able to pay my bills and make a profit. But just overnight, that opportunity was ripped out of my hands. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have that $1 million or whatever that these rich hippies have or whatever the hell, you know what I mean? And so,
Well, very few do, and
yeah,
most of them were
yeah,
corporate people that were in real estate and other investments that really came in. I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
a lot of the, I mean, like Cookies, for instance, Burner.
Yep.
He was
Yep.
a rapper. He
Yep.
just used his weed brand that was a trap brand to like hype his rap thing, which worked out awesome.
Oh yeah.
And now he sells more swag, just shirts and sweatshirts, because it represents like a legal way of breaking the law is what I feel like that brand is like hyping. They're like,
Yeah.
they do it legally, but they also just buy other people's product all over the place. They're not, it's not Cookies grown weed anywhere you go. It's not, like their reputation isn't even based off of their weed. It's based on like it's the brand.
This
It's based
the
on the
culture kind of,
culture that
yeah.
they represent, which is like I'm gonna make money doing things that are like in the gray, but at the same time, I'm just gonna hype like this lifestyle, which
Yeah.
everybody knows and they respect. Like
That's a
nobody
strong
can talk
movie,
shit
dude.
about it
Yeah.
because he's built such a freaking empire off of just something that's underestimate or under represented. No
Yeah.
other brand that's really that big has the like acceptance that like trapping is part of their culture. Even
Yeah.
if it's just the people that do trap buy his fucking sweatshirts, those are the people that are like support that are being represented by Cookies. Though is like that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that brand is like we like fire whether it's legit or not, and we know
Yeah.
that they both exist.
Well, it's funny you say that because I figured it out really quick when the dispensary shop or the cookie shop here that was in Corvallis temporarily, it's not there anymore, but you look at their flower and they have like their cookies branded strains, and then they had like some other ones from other farms nearby. But I'm like, oh, when you look at the label, I was expecting to see like grown by Cookies Farms
Mm-mm.
LLC or whatever the hell, and then you look at it and it's like the one was the I maybe I won't say their name. I don't even remember anyway. But it was some farm out of Portland was growing one of these cookie strains, and I'm like, oh, I mean, this looks like
They just do
fire.
licensing,
It
so that's
is
what I was saying
fire,
earlier.
but
Is like it's
yeah,
all about licensing.
yeah,
So they're kind of working actually in a very similar kind of strategy as that we're working on. Is they just go to other places with their brand, and then they utilize what they have as infrastructure. They buy their flour, they put cookies on it, they sell it. So
yeah,
Cookies is basically buying it for a premium, or not a premium, but like a discount because they're going to buy it under kind of like a licensing deal. They go, okay, we're going to show up and you're going to be able to increase your production because we can set up shops in your area and we're going to supply from you. So it's great for the farm. But at the same time, Cookies doesn't have to go set up a farm.
it doesn't have to be a
They're just going
cookies
to
farm.
farms that
Yeah,
they think will follow their SOPs. They're giving it to them, and then they're able to replicate everywhere. And that brand, because it represents something that they can push really fast. I mean, basically, the amount of money that Cookies is generating and they're putting into infrastructure is crazy. But they've done that by partnering with all these other people in the area with like in the areas they need, setting up dispensaries, not grows.
yeah.
So anyways, the concept I
That
think is
makes a
just really
lot of
important
sense.
to
I
be
never
aware
thought
of. Is
about
like
that.
people are not building the infrastructure like we did here. They're not setting up the labs. They're not building the farms. They're literally just buying shit and giving the SOPs to the farms that are failing, and they're saying, "Hey, follow this, and we'll create a revenue stream for you." And we're giving all these people that are already like there that are the locals. We're giving them the opportunity to use our brands to kind of like leverage that and to offer like bigger sales, bigger markets. And it's usually
Damn,
just in
dude.
partnerships that you have with like other people, and that's something that nobody else can really touch. Is like if it's all that kind of co-op that I was talking about, is like everybody that is working on the market is just working kind of together. It
Yeah.
creates like a huge buying power or like an opportunity for people to share information that just it it creates more like opportunities for the people that are in that circle, and then it excludes everybody that's out.
Yeah, and I feel like that can apply like for a lot of different aspects and just a lot of different types of industries too. Is if you help bring each other up, like this is kind of a odd example, but I like listening to like comic podcasts and they talk about like what helps each other out is like you don't talk shit about I felt like another comic or whatever. You try to help bring each other up because then that brings you up. And so I feel like that kind of magnifies into something like this where it's like if you just work together and put your heads together and try to figure out what the next step is, it's good for everyone. And so that's I think it's cool to hear that that's going on in an industry like this where just an episode ago I was all depressed about how it's not like that. I just
Well,
didn't
in
know
Oregon, it's
like
not like that, and that's the thing that is
in the
really weird to me
state.
is that
Yeah,
Oregon's market is one of the most unhealthy ones I've seen. I think
really.
Oregon and California are like bordering the worst environment. Maybe Colorado too. I don't know. Washington, I feel like the people that are succeeding there are doing pretty good. At least, I mean, in general, the homies that I know here are like working as a contractor, running a rec grow, and they're broke as hell. Whereas the people that I know in like Washington that are like not even like big, but just kind of like mid, are still doing just fine.
Yeah.
It's like it's still a craft thing. It keeps them busy. They're not having to work other jobs on top of being a fucking pot farm. That's
Yeah.
It's nuts to me that like I have friends that have tier twos that have a whole freaking field and they have to like be a contractor.
Fuck.
It's like, dude, that is
What's tier 2? It's just a different.
it's the larger size of outdoor canopy in Oregon.
Okay. Damn, dude.
It's pretty big. But
Th-
anyways, I mean,
yeah.
it's just it's weird to see so many people that I came up with that are like the best minds or like the best growers that I know
Yeah.
making nothing and not able to utilize their craft. They're not going to these new states. I mean, honestly, one of my big ideas is to just start giving huge like opportunities to my best grower buddies and be like, I'm gonna put you as the head grower that makes 150 racks a year, 200,000 a year to go just set this farm up. Go grow in New York.
Yeah.
Go there,
Yeah.
or go here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not even go there all the time, but just go set up the SOP for 6 months and then leave, and then go to
Yeah.
the next one.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm not a good grower. I'm an okay grower, but I'm not like a grower that I would suggest people paying attention to what I'm having to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I know guys that I could be like, okay, go and fix this. I mean, I know some really big operations that are doing nothing, and I would love to start creating opportunities for my buddies that I know could just be a consultant and go in there and just like shape
Dude,
it
that'd
up.
be
I don't have the
great.
opportunity to do it myself, but I could definitely start delegating some people to really assist in some operations, which would then help me with my supply chain.
Yeah.
Because I don't have time to go teach all these growers how to be growers, but I know people here that need jobs that are good growers that I could maybe send to these places,
Yeah.
have them run a crop up there and get things going, and then they can move to the next one.
Yeah. That'd be really nice of you to do that for people. And yeah, that's something that this industry needs is someone like you to do that because if I think about it, I can't think of anyone else doing something like that because they all want to kind of keep their shit to themselves,
Right.
a lot of people. And so, I mean, if you do it right, like you said, then yeah, the sky's the limit for something such as that.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's asking a lot, but I know a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge that they're not utilizing, and they're hungry for it. They just don't know
What the next step
what the
is.
next step is. Like they
Yeah.
don't. I mean, it's been a lot of my meetings with people recently is just talking to like some of my OG grower friends about what they want, and just they're interested in anything. I mean, I literally had a conversation with a buddy about putting him in Thailand
Yeah.
yesterday. 'Cause we're
Damn.
maybe having a project in Thailand at some point. So
Holy shit. So Thailand's legal to an
it's
extent?
medical there. They
Medical.
were going rec, and then the prime minister guy like reversed all
Yeah,
stuff
I
on
read
that.
something about that. Yeah.
It's dramatic. It's probably, I don't know, speculating against it is probably just a money thing. But
Well, let's just hope they don't get
it's
bombed by
medical
China.
still. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Thailand, dude. Japan and
Yeah.
Japan
No,
and
I'm just talking shit.
Taiwan
but-
are way more at risk than
Oh, wait, maybe I'm
there.
thinking of Taiwan.
You're
Yeah.
thinking Taiwan.
Yeah,
Taiwan's the one that they want.
Yeah.
Um,
Just a joke, people.
but anyways, it's just weird to think about like being able to say, hey, I might not be able to do this, but I know somebody that could, and then thinking, man, I might be able to just put things together in a way where I'm able to reach way further than I ever thought, just because I can delegate to people that I have met and trust and like learn things from over the years. I mean, there's plenty of people on the list that I have in my contacts book that I'm like, man, I could call that person up and they'll go solve that problem.
Yeah.
And I have a person for everything now. I mean, even just down to like Phil. Phil, like if I was utilizing this properly, anybody with anything broken ever, or anybody that has like some weird problem, I would just call Phil and be like, Phil, this guy's got a fucked up something at his house and he needs you to fix it. And you'd be like, I'm down there right now.
Delegate.
And Phil would be like, dude, Gavin just calls me up on all these freaking things, puts me to work. And like, I would never have to do any task like that in my life again if I had like the concept to call people that I know that are doers that are just like, oh, just go do that.
Yeah.
I took the money and here you go. I made it worth your while.
Yeah.
Maybe I made 10%. Maybe I didn't. Whatever.
Well, if there's anything I could be of use, give me a call.
I'm just saying I need to be better about that because I think that's where like my future lies is just being the master of delegation. That's how like all big CEOs and like if you really want to run an empire, you cannot do everything yourself. You have to be able to lead and delegate. And that's showing people how it's done sometimes, but at the same time, it's also not getting caught up on doing all the things you feel like only you can do. It's giving people opportunity to do that themselves and taking some risk and going, I can only do more if I can teach other people to do these other things. And that's hard. It's really freaking hard.
I
Because
imagine.
usually you get a lot of loss. I mean, you have to be a good teacher, which I would say not everybody is. I wouldn't say I'm a very good teacher, but I'm trying to be a better teacher. Like I know that if I can influence people in a positive way and like get them to believe in what my mission is, but then also like give them opportunities to excel themselves, that's how I like really gain the most traction and like how I get momentum and what my goals are huge. And I have a whole list of shit that I want to do beyond weed. Like I said 4 or 5 years for weed. That's for sure. But like beyond that, dude, I have way more business ideas. Like I'm going to be doing stuff in a much soon. I'm actually starting a new business this year. It's going to be like a property investment company.
Really?
We'll talk about that in length at another time. But
Yeah.
Basically giving people that are renters the opportunity to invest in not only like their house but like property like ownership. So like every month basically, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it basically gives the opportunity for every renter to own their home.
Okay.
And to invest in not only their home but other homes. So they're investing into real estate. So they're gaining interest.
And they can.
It's basically like an insurance policy. So you pay like an insurance like a set amount per month basically on top of your rent, and it goes into investing into the house that you live in and owning it, as well as other properties.
That's a pretty strong move, dude.
It's huge.
Yeah,
I mean, it's gonna like everybody that's a renter would be. I mean, with this concept, I could be buying the like apartment complex that you live in through this shit because I would just go get a loan, make a deal with your owner of your apartment complex and say, hey, I've got the money to buy this place. Suddenly I just buy it, and then I'd have a contract with everybody that lives there that's just giving me a premium for rent every month because they get to own their house after 15 years or 20 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then they're also going to be owners of other properties that are other apartment complexes, and it's like
And that could
it's like a co-op for like communal or not communal but like property ownership for renters. Renters are not just renters. They're renting to own. Anything you're renting from us is renting to own.
Dude, that'd be a strong move.
And it's only going to cost you extra $150 a month. You can afford that. Get rid of some of these fucking apps that you got, or, subscriptions to Netflix. Like, you can shave $150 off your budget, even if you're broke as fuck.
Yeah.
But if you're going to own something after 30 years or whatever, I don't know what the calculation is, but the point is that you're investing in something that's going to keep gaining value.
And
so
down
even
the
if you never
road.
own it, you're still going to have the equity that you gained in the years that you lived there. And it's going to give you a reason to want to maintain you want to keep it up because you realize you're going to own it someday.
Yeah,
It's
you
going
don't
to
want to
give
be a shithole.
renters a reason to actually give a shit about where they live and want to improve it and make like positive improvements to it.
Yeah.
So might have to cut some of that out because I talked a little bit about my idea. I don't want nobody taking it. But,
Well,
it is happening, and I'm not too worried about people taking it because honestly, the more people that do that, the better.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're doing now and what your goals are is really helpful to people, and it really gives me hope into what this industry, the cannabis industry, can look forward to for just someone who might want to start their own thing. It kind of gives a little light at the end of the tunnel there, where there's a helping hand, maybe, or whatever the case
The
may be.
cannabis industry needs a better rep, dude. I mean, it's got so much bad news. Like, it's
Yeah,
about the culture being dead. You know, all these weed events being kind of like stripped down and not like the weed culture is dying.
it is
And it's
100%.
dying because it's going into this mainstream media bullshit instead of focusing on all the like change impact on medical patients' lives and the impact on families that are growers that are all benefiting. And it's like a generational thing. It was like inspiring for quite a while. And that's what we like keeps us wanting to legalize it, but we're not talking about it.
Yeah,
We're not like instilling the value to these growers in those communities that we're keeping it alive. We're letting it die out. And that's
yeah,
what's really sad is like we
it is
don't have
sad,
any
man.
weed operations that are doing things to change the problems for the world either. We're not like going out and solving mental health awareness shit or like doing anything that really helps to like shout out some of the main problems of society.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, if you had a weed company that was like talking about how corrupt both sides of our government was while also saying we need to focus on mental health, drug awareness, like all the main topics that people actually give a shit about, equal equality, women's gender rights. Like, I don't know. Like, they could be so much more politically involved. They could be so much more dramatic and so much more like focused on things that make the world better while also trying to like value what we bring to it, which is
yeah.
that like new.
And that was like kind of with it, with the cannabis movement. Like even just in the medical days, it was, a lot of those other topics you discussed were kind of encased with it in a way, because
Mm-hmm.
it was like the battering ram for these other things, awareness to these other things, if that makes sense. It
Well, it
because
justified what people were willing to do. Like if we were breaking the law back then because we were selling recreational vape pens to kids or not kids, but like,
yeah,
20-year-olds or whatever, it would be like, okay, yeah, we don't want to legalize it because that's a party drug. But they legalized it because they're, oh, we're saving grandmas and we're giving MCT oil or not MCT, but like RSO oil and
RSO,
shit to
yeah.
cancer patients in massive doses, and that's making their cancer go away or like at least alleviating their symptoms from chemo or whatever. So the story was a lot better back then. And it was also painted by, the people that are contributing to those patients are families.
Yeah.
There's no families contributing to patients anymore.
No, no one gives a shit about the
Nobody
patient.
cares
No one
about
even
patients
thinks
anymore.
about patients
No, they're probably
anymore.
smoking distillate more than like more than anything else these days. When that's probably the worst thing that they could be using for their symptoms.
Yeah. And I'm glad you bring that up, because I was trying to explain that in the last episode. I just did a bad job at explaining it, but that really was that was my central point I was trying to get at, is everyone forgot about the patient and with the medical culture, why this is a thing in the first place. And it's important, I think, for us to maybe not get back, but look at it in a different light. So
Mm-hmm.
that way, those people, we can remember why this is a thing and why companies should help each other out instead of either people being greedy or trying to monopolize markets or whatever the fuck. And so, what I think you're doing is a great service and a great platform to, uh, steelman that,
Well, I
because,
haven't done it yet. I'm just shooting
well,
towards it, and that's my goal. It's like it's one of those things where I'm obligating myself to do something if I'm going to be a part of this industry. Because I've done it with the intent of making money for a long time, and I've made money, and I haven't made money, and it's just been like that didn't make me want to do it anymore. What
yeah,
makes me want to do it is doing something that's gonna like
there's a bigger picture involved,
give myself a reason to like pass it on. It's like if you can't inspire your kid or like other people to come up into this, and I'm doing it the way that I'm doing it, but I'm not. I wouldn't want this for somebody else. Like I'm subject to that myself, first of all, I should want something better. I should want it enough to be like I'm going to do things in a different way that like obligates me and the people around me to do that.
well, that's really is inspiring to hear you say that, man, because it's your ambition. Me and Kelly talked about your ideas, and your ambition is above and beyond anyone I have met, and it's really awesome that these ideas you bring to it is, I think, is going to be good for the cause, and it's gonna, you work really hard. I think if you just keep at it, you will achieve that. And I think you already to some extent kind of have, like, maybe not to, like, to the world or whatever, but like to your own level, you've kind of gotten there.
I'm
And
trying to prove it to myself, I guess, first.
dog,
And then,
dog
like, as,
like,
as I do that, I'm trying to, I guess, start small and, like, kind of express that in a way that I can, like, relate to the people around me first. Like, my loved ones, my wife, my friends, just kind of the way that I'm living my life right now is definitely on different terms than I've ever done.
yeah.
But it's also, like, more rewarding. I'm feeling empowered and excited and, like I'm having the tools to pursue these things that I wanted to do forever, but never felt like I could do it. I could never, like, break out and
Break
chase
the
my
mold.
dreams. It's weird.
Well, I think you've done that more than anyone else I've met. Even like during the hydro days, pre Worthy Hands days, Worthy Hands until now, you've done more than I could have done, and a lot of other people I knew could be able to. And yeah, like I said, your ambition is
Well, it's about
second to
being
none.
like shedding that though. Is what I'm saying. Is like part of doing that is me like getting that across to you too, and like not holding that as your own. That's not my goal. Is to be successful myself. I want to be successful with everybody around me.
They want to bring everyone else up. Yeah, yeah, and that's good, And back to what we were talking about earlier, that's like what killed a lot of this is people not wanting to do that. And so,
Just lowering the bar. Like lowering their own value, devaluing the people around them, what their artistic craft is, or like what they bring to it that makes it worth it. A lot of growers were breeders. Some of the best genetics came from these small little grows that were craft developed, and someday that's all going to be owned by Phylos and Monsanto, and
yeah,
it's going to be grown by some fucking company like Dole or some shit. And like
yeah,
we're going to see what we had now, and we're going to be like, wow, we fucked that up. We let
yeah.
those
No,
guys
it's a,
steal it, and we're dumb.
yeah, you
I
gotta
can't
own,
believe I
yeah,
stopped buying my fucking homies shit from across the street because you know what, I was buying from dispensaries because I'm a dick, and how many home growers did we know back in the day that we could have bought from their weed, and then instead everybody buys from the dispensaries? Like if we had all
yeah,
just kept it real and like helped our homies sell their weed and like outprice and outpace the dispensaries with better shit, we would still have a healthy black market here. But ours is just destroyed. Other states, I mean, like California is a prime example. Their black market is just healthy as fuck. People take their weed from Oregon to California to sell it to other states just because it's more valuable as soon as it's in California.
no, yeah, no
And that's
shit.
just a branding thing. It's just like cookies. Like, oh man, I mean, that's the same thing if you go into other countries. If they sell you weed in another country, they're like, "Oh, this came from California, USA. It's $1 million." It's
Yeah,
like,
it's
but
from
nobody's
Jungle
saying,
Boys,
"Oh,
dude.
it's from Oregon." There's no Oregon weed anywhere else in the world. I guarantee you, because they're gonna lie and say it's California,
Yeah,
even if it was from Oregon.
yeah.
Oregon has no rep. We've like fucked up the branding. We're known for
I
shit
think
that's not
we've
notable.
had some of the best. I mean, it's hard to say who's had the best weed, but as far as Oregon has made some strides in the market. I
Yeah, but
feel
our
like,
market's so unhealthy that we don't have the best weed anymore. We may have
yeah,
had it, but
once upon a
we don't have
time,
it now.
yeah. Well, I think, yeah, I'm optimistic, and I just hope. I mean, I don't know about Oregon, but I'm just optimistic for the industry itself to maybe like allow proper representation. Oh, excuse me. Among the places that deserve it, I guess. Like like your rosin, like if you're able to express that to places that don't have access to something like that, that could be one step to that type of representation, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, man, it's wild times we live in.
It just doesn't pay to be a grower or anybody in the weed industry in Oregon right now, and that's a bummer. So I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see who's willing to like go chase the money, but eventually federal legalization will happen. It'll just I don't know if people that are here are just gonna jump back into action though either.
No.
I don't think if all of a sudden weed's worth something in Oregon again and we're exporting it to other countries or something, I don't think that's going to fix the weed issues in Oregon. I think the
No.
culture is broken here.
Well, how
Like,
long
if
does
you're gonna
that
fix that,
last?
you got to kind of like for instance, if you were to, I guess, open up public consumption in Oregon and make it more socially acceptable to smoke weed in public or like drink and smoke, that would be something that kind of connected cultures and started getting like branding, and it would like, I guess, help to decriminalize weed in Oregon. Like, it's weird to think that weed's judged in Oregon, but a lot of the new states that legalize, they're like so excited about
They're
it.
just like, go for
It's
it.
like weed
Yeah.
is like cigarettes. It's like, stay the fuck out. You know, like
Yeah.
that's, you can't overlap things. Children, cigarettes, weed, children.
Yeah.
Scary. We're like so scared of what weed can do, even though it doesn't do anything but make people drive slow. It's just, it's weird that like we're so legal here and we're so like adapt to it that we're actually worse than new states or even illegal. Like Austin, Texas is more weed friendly than I'd say a lot of parts of Oregon are.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're just smoking on like Delta 8 and those type of.
No, they have like weed. Like
They
they've
do?
pretty much decriminalized weed. They don't have dispensaries and shit, but they're not focusing their resources on taking weed in Austin. Now, if you go and do that in San Antonio or like 80-90% of the rest of Texas, you will go to prison. So
Gotcha. So
you
you
don't
got
get
to
it mixed
stay
up.
in the
Austin
city. Yeah.
has different laws as far as I understand.
Yeah. I always thought that they had like it was like Delta 8 products or whatever.
Well, that's always been around, right?
Yeah.
But, no, they have like actual weed. They just don't
Yeah.
really like focus any attention to it.
Well, I think this is a good ending point, but I think this was a good conversation. I think we covered a lot of ground here, and like I said, I'm optimistic in what this could be, especially after hearing what you had to say. And like I said, what if you do accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, which I feel very confident you will. You're going to do a great service to those places that need it, and it's gonna shine a light on you, man. And so just got to say thank you for being on the show, and thank you for what you do, and thank you for putting your piece in, and hopefully someone could take something from this. And this is a much brighter version in the last episode on what this talk is. And so
I'm hoping so,
yeah.
dude. It could be a total nightmare. I might like curse it all to hell after 5 years, but I'm gonna give it my best. I'm gonna give it hell.
You're gonna watch this
but
episode.
I'm also gonna do other shit. That's the thing that I was talking about, like covering multiple bases. I'm gonna stop waiting 5 years from now to chase that other goal. I'm gonna start that fucking business.
Just get on it.
I'm just gonna get on it, even if I don't really have time to do it. I'm gonna start it, and I'm gonna chase this other dream. But I'm also gonna make sure that I'm like doing what counts at home and like what I really like fundamentally want to be fixing. I'm like, everybody I know needs a safe place to stay, and even me as a pretty successfully like financially stable person, I still don't own a fucking house, and there's nobody that wants to give me a loan that makes sense. There's nothing that I can just like afford to do that's gonna like give me like an opportunity to put my money where it counts.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I was like, that idea is gonna freaking happen. I'm gonna do it because it's something I've always wanted for myself, and I want it for everybody I know.
Yeah, well, and I feel like that could go for anyone who watches this. Just you gotta take it by the balls and run with it and see what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way shit's gonna get done.
Invest in your peeps.
Invest in your So before we go, is there like an Instagram page or something to follow? Like just look up Happy Cabbage online. Like if people are interested in looking into what you do, or is that a thing yet? Or
I mean, you can just look up Happy Cabbage.
So Happy Cabbage, yeah.
Right.
I'm sure they have an Instagram page or whatever,
Yeah.
but yeah, check it out, and then probably be able to see some of the products you make, and I'll edit some pictures into this. But
Cool.
But yeah, thanks again, man. I appreciate it, and
thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. This is That Hella Dank podcast. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.